Thank you for joining me today in Shone's Thoughts. I apologize that I'm recording this offline right now because as I was trying to set up my camera for my showing, I kept having to push the time back. And when I was actually setting up the camera, every time that I went to press the go live button, the camera would change the orientation, it would change the direction of the camera, and finally when I decided I didn't care about the frame, this beautiful, magnificent river view that I'm looking at right now, it actually stopped even connecting to the internet for the portion of the time, seeing that something is definitely trying to thwart my upload of this content. So, as I said, thank you for joining me, and I'm here anyways. I will upload this video, and in fact, the audio will even be better than it would have been if I had done this live. Not only that, I'm filming right now in 4K, so this is a tremendous view of the reflection of an amazing scene I'm seeing across the river. And what stands out to me immediately is the numerous amount of RV trailers that are set up with river view plots of land that they're on. These aren't home plots. These are actually just people that are living, you can say, off-grid in a sense, close to, a city that I live in, and yet they are living off-grid in a bit. Well, in RVs and such. But nonetheless, it definitely shows that there is an expanse of people that have stepped away from normal living conditions, meaning that they're not being a part of the system any longer, and there's definitely a rising amount of people that are choosing to step away from the matrix and how the matrix was forcing or compelling us to live. People awakening, and actually right now there are more people than ever that are awakening to the fact that our world truly isn't what we see. It's more of a reflection of what they prefer us to receive and therefore project. So today I'm going to talk about what I wanted to talk about, irregardless of whatever matrix or operatives or whatever it is that's trying to block this transmission from going out. And my topic today was based on a book that I was reading this morning, and it's called A World Made New, or something along the lines of that. It's a channeled text by Paul Selig. It's the 12th book in an amazing series, and the third book in the series of manifestation. And manifestation isn't about conscious, I want something to come. Manifestation is more about what manifests into the world, and those manifestations essentially come from our higher selves or from God, and they realize themselves into our world. So when I was reading this book, I came across a passage within day 4 or day 5 in where it talked about a painted curtain, and that we are all standing behind this painted curtain. Now, this painted curtain wasn't necessarily painted by us specifically. You could say that it was more co-created by us, a projection of what they essentially casted into our heads, getting us to project onto a screen, and therefore we believed what we were seeing was real. In a previous podcast, I talked about how time was in somewhat an illusion. See, we have a perspective of time that time is in a linear fashion going forward, and yet many of us have experienced stepping out of time. And what I mean by that is that we are able to perhaps envision or see things that we believe that we want, and yet these perhaps are timelines or experiences that we will have or have had, and yet we're unaware of that. And so that being on the other side of the painted curtain, the curtain representing something that is going to lift. See, when I was in theater, I would often stand on the other side of the curtain where the actors are standing on stage. And it was such a grand feeling for those curtains to open and for that light from the outside where the audience sat to therefore break into our stage. And this was an exceptional, amazing feeling. And that's kind of what I see as I read this book, that we are standing on the stage and we are looking at a painted curtain from the inside, projections that we ourselves have casted upon that curtain. And where this talk goes into is talking about resistance. See, resistance is holding or resisting what is inevitable, what is coming, the things that we feel intuitively are there. And there are so many beautiful, wonderful experiences on the horizon for many of us. And yet we, or many of us anyways, stand in a world of resisting what is forthcoming. See, we hold on to things, and when something good comes into our lives, a lot of times we resist change. We resist what could be based on our expectation or our connection to what was. See, in the book that I was reading, Paul Selig's guides were talking about how there are many things that are coming and we're resisting them because they are changes. And sometimes these changes can be considerably dramatic or, more importantly, mind-blowing different from what we perceived or expected the next day would come. There is this part in the TV series, I'm not sure if it's actually in the holy textbooks or books, whatever, where Samuel says to David, when David is concerned, he's been told that he will be the next king of Israel, and yet as a shepherd boy, he's unable to actually see how that could ever be. He's unable to envision the possibility of that coming true because all of his life he was told that he was a bastard. He was told that he was gonna always be a shepherd boy. Like, that's the life he lived. His brothers never, essentially, as the video or as the TV series shows, his brothers were different. They were soldiers. They were big. They were strong. They were, leaders. And yet he was a boy who was really amazing with a slingshot and with his sheep. And yet he was scrawny, and he came from the wife of his father's second marriage, and he was outcasted by the community overall. So he was unable to see how this prophecy which Samuel had told him could ever become true. And yet he goes on to be, David versus Goliath. He goes on to essentially unite a lot of his people underneath the current king of Israel. And in this talk, he's pondering how is this ever going to be, Samuel comes to him and says, why do you think that just because yesterday was yesterday, that tomorrow is going to be another version of yesterday? Leading us to the idea that change can be sudden. Change can be like a tsunami hitting across a land and bringing it anew. Now, this tsunami doesn't have to be some natural disaster or some big negative event. This tsunami of change can be something that's of great positivity, something that's of great beauty. And this showcasing of the frame that I'm recording on essentially shows that now. It shows us that we are now connecting more with Mother Nature. Yes, all of these people across the roads, and it's maybe challenging to see it in this frame unless you zoom up, but all of these RVs and trailer homes, these people that are choosing to live differently than the normal buy a house, pay the taxes on the land, and feed the system. They are choosing to live in a smaller community right against the edges of a river. And they are living a completely different life. They are releasing that resistance. And see, resistance doesn't just mean you're resisting what's incoming. Sometimes resistance is an example of holding on to past expectations, past events, like things that you have had in the past, that you've always had this system that was giving you some sort of shelter, and therefore you want to hold on to that. Or even the morning cup of coffee at Starbucks or Tim Hortons. The idea that if corporations go down, which they are, by the way, going down. I watched a video actually of a channel, and they're essentially exposing a lot of the carcinogens that are within our food in franchises such as Subway. They showcased the plastic that's been found and the extensive amount of sugar that's in the bread of the Subway product across the planet. And this essentially, the headline or the headline of the video says the end of Subway. And then there's another video about the end of A&W and the end of McDonald's. And these aren't shows that are showcasing fear porn. They are essentially showing us that things are changing drastically and dramatically. And so that cup of coffee that you have that's conveniently located as you go through the drive-through spending your gas, which by the way is extremely expensive right now, nonetheless, there are thousands of cars that are idling in drive-thrus all over North America. Now, if you don't know what a drive-thru is because you're in a country that doesn't necessarily have it, I've traveled around the world, and rarely have I ever seen drive-thrus with the exception of North America. And what a drive-thru is a restaurant that has a line of cars that's piled up in front of it as if it was a traffic jam. And they're all sitting there waiting to order so that they don't have to get out of their car. And in a sense, we are wasting a considerable amount of fuel on all these drive-thrus across North America. Now, as we move away from this type of atmosphere of go, 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 we will no longer need drive-thrus to the extent that we had had them. And that's another thing that perhaps people are holding on to, that convenience factor of life. And yet convenience factors come at the expense of so much otherly things that we could experience. So for instance, sitting in our car, idling for 10 minutes as we wait to go through the drive-thru at Tim Hortons or McDonald's, well, we're essentially bypassing the social experience of being in the restaurant with each other and hearing that conversations and overhearing all of the laughter and joy of the families that are there. And we're essentially getting what we need and then driving to where we're going to go slave away for the day, rather than, contributing to the social impact of community. And so there are many things that we are resisting, and a lot of those things that we're resisting are things that are actually limiting us. They're holding us back from blasting off into the sky of possibility. And that's what my channel, as I had mentioned before, is truly about. It's about the possibility of what could be, the realization of all our dreams and our desires manifested into a world simply by allowing that which is to our highest benefit to become visible, to be realized into our own reality. And that's because we are grabbing onto something in the past. Now, I say this we, and I speak as if I know what I'm talking about, and yet I'll be honest with you. I'm myself in the process of learning. This whole experience that I've been waking up to in the last 3 years has been a growing, healing, spiritual awakening journey of my own. And my goal is simply to share it with as many people as possible. And I recognize that the people that I share it with are those who are aligned, those who are able to resonate. Many people will hear what I have to say and they'll dismiss it for whatever reasons, whether it's whatever reasons they have. I won't start listing them, but many people will resist. And the resistance essentially comes from their attachment to a past, or perhaps your attachment to the past. Perhaps I'm speaking to someone right now who's in great resistance. I recently had a live stream talk where, as I was ending the video, I saw in the comments that someone said, WTF, what are you talking about? And that's an understandable comment, because it's not necessarily that everyone will understand the things that I say. I speak at a faster rate, and that's essentially due to a considerable amount of healing that I have been ongoing. I once took this course where it explained that self-confidence is part of the healing journey, part of reclaiming your ability to manifest or to live the life that you want, is to essentially evolve our self-confidence. And my self-confidence at many different times has ebbed and flowed. It's went from the highest highs where I produced, directed my own plays that I wrote, financing them as well, regardless of the outcome. I wanted to create, and I wanted to support other people creating and following their passions and dreams, because the way that the Matrix was set up is to essentially lower self-confidence. And self-confidence, even with the show or the movie series called Harry Potter, was definitely a demonstrated, going from a boy who was able to cast magic, but he was nervous and shy about his place in the world, all the way to the 7th movie where this boy has become a man and is able to battle Voldemort and the evil demon beings that essentially are trying to take over the Earth realm. And so that's a great example of when we rise in self-confidence, such as I have been going through over the 3 years. I've been casting away those traumas and those programs that I myself was programmed with. So when I say we, I include me in that, because I myself have experienced everything that I'm sharing. See, there will be a lot of people out there that are going to tell you things or share with you things that they've heard from other people, that they've experienced from other people, and they themselves may not even have experienced it, but yet in a drive to be more than they are, they take on the persona of those other people, and then they try to share those experiences and knowledge that they accidentally call wisdom of those other people, when it's our own experiences that we're here to experience. And so the experiences that I share, or that I try to share, well, they do sometimes include the lessons that I've learned from other people. For me, it's much more important to share that which I experience myself. And my own experience has been that self-growth. Now, that self-growth of self-confidence did come, or was perhaps sparked, by the lessons that I had learned from, well, in this sense, it was Kevin Trudeau, who gave a lesson on the value of self-confidence. And the self-confidence for me has truly driven me, or been my partner in getting to be where I am now. And where I am now is doing what I want on a daily basis, rather than being subjected to the whims and the desires of those who would have controlled us. Now, keep in mind that partly the reason why that is because those beings that controlled us, from very high levels up all the way down to governments and operatives, they are essentially disappearing right now. And actually, I heard of a story where there are 6 generals who have disappeared recently. And for me, I find that story to be fantastic and amazing, because it definitely shows me that we are moving forward, that those forces out there that would have us war with one another, that those beings are essentially poofing and disappearing. And for me, I see that as a great sign that restoration and the reunification of Homo sapiens is on the rise. And we are essentially becoming organic, in a sense, and releasing the artificial overlays that have limited us for such a long time. I really love this frame that I'm staring at right now because of the reflection that we see above world, and then we see the reflection of the below world. And the water is reflecting the sky. The water is reflecting the sky, which is pretty nice as well. And then there's that boat that's creating all those ripples. You can kind of see that as a distortion of reality, kind of like what they're doing in the sky right now. I can see chemtrails all over the sky, but yet I laugh at them for even thinking that that could stop God. That them spraying chemicals in our sky in order to block the sun As if that has any relevance to the world that is rising, the new earth that is being revealed as always have been here. See, we're connecting to a source that is far greater than the sun that we see in the sky. I'm not dismissing the sun in the sky. I'm meaning that we are connecting to the Earth's inner sun. See, we were taught that that the Earth had this molten core, lava center core thingy. And yet, stories have been often used in order to give us something to hold on to, rather than living in a state of wonder and pondering. As a child, when we saw things such as dragons and fairies and trolls and all that stuff, it helped and it encouraged our imagination to grow. But perhaps that wasn't necessarily our imagination. It was perhaps more of our memory of the past events or past experiences we've had. In the recent years, there's been an explosion of various YouTube channels, even talking about how plateaus of stone perhaps were once giant trees. And all I had to do was go in Golden Ears National Park near the Garibaldi mountain range and see all of these very large tree trunks that were left there from the deforestation that the Haney family was responsible for 120 years ago, 110 years ago. And I could see that there was a considerably different world than the world that we live in right now. And when we now see these forests and they have all of these really thin trees, we can imagine that, one day those large trees will become large again. The size of the trees, I've come to understand, are a reflection to how much oxygen that we have in our atmosphere. Well, right now we have very little oxygen in comparison to the amount of other gases that are in our atmosphere. And yet at one point in time, we had a lot more oxygen. So beings such as dinosaurs, well, we'll call them mythological dinosaurs, but nonetheless, these large-sized reptiles, they perhaps were able to get considerably larger due to the amount of oxygen. And the trees themselves, well, they were, I guess you could say, they were consuming carbon dioxide. The amount of carbon dioxide has varied as well. And yet, as more carbon dioxide enters our air, carbon dioxide, by the way, is the food source for all plant life. So the more carbon dioxide that's available, it simply means the faster that nature will grow, the faster and bigger that trees will grow. And guess what? The more carbon dioxide that those trees across the way right now consume, the larger those trees will go. And as the larger they go, the more oxygen they produce. The more oxygen they produce, the more oxygen we receive. See, there are so many people on our planet right now that have so many ailments. They have so many conditions that they're struggling against. And yet, one of the, we'll call it alternative modalities of healing is using oxygen in order to help heal. And right there, that showcases that if we have a more potent amount of oxygen, that our ability to heal naturally perhaps would be supersized. I had to think about a cute word there for that. And, coming all the way back, because I'm going to reel back down from that because I want to keep this a little bit shorter because I want to upload it, because as I said, I expected to do this live with you today, but yet there were many things that were trying to stop me from sharing the energy and the love that I have right now. And so we'll get all the way back to what I was talking about, resistance and reading of the Paul Selig book. So as that curtain opens, as we're standing on the stage and the little bit of the curtain starts to break and the light starts to shine through, there's that trepidation, that little bit of anxiety, because we're going to be seen. We're going to be witnessed by everyone on the other side. But not only that, we are going to essentially step into a world where we'll have a lot more responsibility. We'll have a lot more sovereignty, yes, of course. But at the same time, we are going to have more accountability for everything and anything that we do. All of our actions, everything that we do and say, they have had a repercussion, regardless if we didn't know it. I've often talked about gossiping. And gossiping is sitting in a room talking about someone else. And when we speak about them in a negative fashion, they're actually taking on that energy. And you can almost look at it as if it was a psychic attack. Now, we've been led to believe that psychic attacks and different things such as gossiping hold nothing to it. That, we're not accountable for the words we say. And yet, when we speak out into our realities, our worlds ripple far beyond anything that we could imagine. So when we actually talk poorly or negatively about someone else, even when someone tells us their dreams and we think to ourselves, oh, that person will never do that, or whatever it is else that we're thinking in a negative way that is unsupportive, or anything that's even mildly unsupportive. Well, what ends up happening is that energy is therefore directed back to us, and then we have to essentially balance that karmic debt. And while karma perhaps is dissolving, in that way of life of living in polarity of having good and bad will perhaps no longer be, it's something that we must become aware of in order for us to heal. In order for a person to truly heal, we have to be aware of how we got to where we got to. And where we got to was essentially a lot of these unseen forces. Not necessarily unseen as that they had consciousnesses and they were attacking us, and although that did happen often, it was also things that we weren't aware that we were doing to ourselves. And that's something that we have to be aware of, that everything we do, as one of those laws of science said, that every action has an equal and opposite action. Or every force, I'm not sure. But anyways, I won't quote me on that. But that concept that everything we do has an opposite and equal reaction. And so with that in mind, we can therefore be aware of the things that we are holding on to. And in the book that he had talked about a whole bunch of different things. We expect things to be the way they are. We expect because yesterday that we couldn't change something, that tomorrow we can't change something, or that now we can't change something. But yet, even if you sit in the moment of hostility with someone, you can remember that you control your reality. And in that moment that you remember that, even if it's in the moment of a flare of anger, you can choose differently. You can decide that, no, I'm not going to continue being this way, that I'm going to do something differently. And whether that's just pausing, taking a deep breath, calming yourself down and going into a state of meditation, whether it's while they're standing right in front of you, or you relieve yourself and step away and calm down, or if it's actually being courageous enough in that moment to recognize that idea of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So would we want someone yelling back at us? No. So why would we perhaps yell at them in that moment? And perhaps the action that we can take is to simply apologize. Apologize to the person, apologize to yourself, apologize to anyone who's around you listening, and just simply be grateful because you have leveled up. Being able to stop in that moment of stress when the body or the mind, the memory integrated network device, has chosen to release that cortisol in order to create that low vibrational experience for you, the person you're talking to all the people around you. When we have come to understand perhaps that there are other forces, that therefore we can release that expectation that yesterday is going to be anything like today. because one day soon, and I have true faith that this is, that we are going to flip that dial like that 1980s television set, and there's going to be a completely different channel. And the more that we release resistance, the more that we brace for something amazing, as the curtain opened, as that painted curtain opens, and we release that projection of all that programming, all of that past traumas, all of those expectations that we're going to have what we had yesterday, and we're therefore able to step through that curtain into the center front of each of our own stages, because everyone lives at the center of their own reality, and yet we are all together one. We all have many different experiences, trials, and challenges. And although those challenges and trials are going to continue, because we are here to grow, we are here to become stronger, we are being forged back into remembering, as I've said before, and that's with a hyphen, remembering ourselves, our true selves, and the true reason why we are all here. So I encourage you, step forward, step out into that stage, into that spotlight, accept that applause without ego. I just had a fly try to fly in my ear. Anyways, so thank you so much for sharing your attention with me. And I highly encourage you, as I always do, comment. Even if you're an operative and you're experiencing what I'm talking about today, share, because it's all of us that are reuniting and becoming one, regardless of what role we played in this matrix that we were essentially imprisoned in. We are reunifying to our true selves, and essentially we're realigning with God, the source of all things. And as I've said before, there is one God. He's not your God or their God or any other religion's God. God is God. And so when we once again realize that we've been living in their world of separation, oh, this is beautiful. The whole dock's rocking right now because of that boat that came by. Anyways, thank you so much. I truly am blessed to share this beautiful lakeside or riverside scene with you. And, enjoy the sun, enjoy the blue sky. And I'm definitely going to create a series of videos from this amazing view that I am so blessed to witness right now, and any others who are near me right now. I hope you, and I more than hope, I have faith that we are coming through this into an amazing world. And the true factor of how quick each and every one of us comes into New Earth is essentially decided upon whether or not we release, heal, and remove those traumas from each of our individual fields and make that choice, because that's what God always gave us. He gave us free will. And when we recognize that that free will was exploited, perhaps by archonic beings, sure, but also by our shadow selves and our different selfish ways that we once had, but yet we are choosing now to release. Thank you so much for sharing your time and attention with me. I look forward to creating another audio. I probably will do another one today. I have many different ideas that are being directed towards me, and I just have to find a beautiful place to sit and share them, and perhaps the next one will go live. Have a wonderful day, and happy day ending in Y. Love you so much. Shone's thoughts. Now I want to hear yours in the comments below. Bye-bye.